Jaime Munguia, Eric Bazinyan. Very good fight, Chris. A ton of action. I thought Munguia was losing a lot of those rounds, but he finished strong. You got to give a ton of credit to his stamina, to his chin, to his power. He was able to break Bazinyan down eventually and stopped him.
Yeah, Joe, like you said, this fight, coming off that loss to Canelo Alvarez, we wanted to see how Jaime Munguia was going to perform. There are a lot of people that feel these kinds of fights they're dangerous because you're fighting a guy that's not at the level of a Canelo. It's a type of fighter that you normally think you could handle easily. Sometimes guys don't prepare well enough for these kinds of fighters and they can get shocked. But no, like you said, he you know did his job, finished him off in the 10th round. Good knockout. Like you said, meant he was losing a few rounds early on. And we talked about it before the podcast. It's normal. Guys like David Avides, guys like Jaime Munguia, they're not the most technically sound fighters, but they're brawlers and they break you down. And that's exactly what he did. And he looked good, Gio. 10th round knockout. It was a good night.
Yeah, Big Bro checking in. He says Bazinian looked good. Solid fighter. He says good fight. Yeah, it was a very entertaining fight. 10 rounds, as you said. I feel like a lot of those rounds are close. Bazinian was boxing in a lot of those rounds. Probably better technically, skill wise than Munguia. However, that power made the difference, man. And big ups to Bazinian. You see his record there, 32-1 now. One draw as well. He had 23 KOs and those 32 wins. Takes his first loss to Jaime Munguia, de Tijuana, Mexico. Munguia, of course, took his first loss in the previous fight against Saul Canelo Alvarez in May of this year. He improves to 44 wins, one loss, 35 of those victories coming by way of knockout. I believe we both predicted Munguia to win by KO. However, watching this fight, I was a little worried, man. I was a little worried. As I said, he was getting outboxed for a lot of those rounds. But as I said, the stamina, the chin, the power. He has Eddie Morales back in his corner as well. So I think Munguia looked good, man. I think he looks like a better fighter since that Canelo loss.
Yeah, and we talked about this, about these opponents that we don't know who they are. This is a great fight for them to showcase who they are. I mean, I've always said even in defeat, some of these guys can walk away with some fans, and that's what Brazilian did, in my opinion. Of course, there's people that just like us, we didn't know who he was, we didn't know what he was going to bring. It was an easy pick, just to say Munguia by knockout, but you never know until you see the fight. And again, he gave a good account of himself. Young man from, I believe, Armenia. Like you said, winning a lot of those rounds. And again, he fought, one of the top guys in that division. The Munguia that he lost to has only lost to the great Canelo. So no shame in that. You go back to the drawing board, and we're excited to see who he fights next.
Yeah, and that's the question, Chris. Who will he fight next? It seems like this was a very good comeback fight for Jaime Munguia. As I said, 44-1. He does have a ton of fights for only being 27 years old. We don't see fighters like that anymore, Chris. This was his third fight this year. He fought in January. He fought in May. Now he fought in September. And he said, hey, maybe next year, early next year, he can get a fight against Caleb Plant or Edgar Berlanga. But yeah, I like that he's staying active. He only had that one fight in 2023. That was the fight of the year against Sergey Devrichenko. But if you look at his resume there, 2 to 3 fights every single year, which is pretty good. Some of them he had 4 or 5 fights. Obviously, when he was younger, a lot of those fights early in his career in Mexico. But yeah, I like that, man. He's staying active. 45 fights already at 27 years old. I'm liking this version of Munguia. To me, he's always been a good fighter. Sometimes a little indisciplined on the defensive end. He still has those flaws, but I think in this one, especially, he showed a little more head movement, a little more waist movement. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes he just forgets and resorts back to his old self. But look, this was enough to beat a guy like Bazinian. So yeah, I hope he gets a big fight. Obviously, as he said, Caleb Plant, Edgar Berlanga, interesting fights. I guess one of the Charlos is still out there. Everyone seems to call him out as well. Obviously, you got guys like Billy. You got guys like Diego Pacheco coming up as well. I don't think he gets a Canelo rematch. Um, but yeah, they're definitely interesting fights at 168. When we talked about this last week, 168, one of the hottest divisions right now in boxing.
Let me just say, Gio, like this is a good fight for him. He looked fresh. He looked good in there. It didn't look like the Munguia that we saw in there. You would not think this is the guy that got thoroughly outbeat. 5 months ago. He looked good. It's a great win. You get knocked down for the first time in your career, and you take a one-sided beat down by Canelo. It's a great feeling. Great for his confidence to come back, get this knockout. It's almost like you kind of put those that goes to rest. You end the year on a win. It's good for Munguia, and like you said, he's 27. He's in his prime. If he were 33, 34, he, wouldn't have had the same freshness the way he had in his fight. So this is the time to make those kinds of fights with the Caleb Plants, all those other 168 pounders. Like you said, he's got some flaws, but I think it makes it interesting. It can intrigue some of those other fighters. And again, a Berlanga, a Caleb Plant, that's a fight that would sell, in my opinion.
Yeah, before we get into that, I just thought it was interesting, Chris. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as the fight ended, Timothy Bradley was like, "Oh man, this guy's Munguia's different. He's a good fighter, this and that." But remember, months back when Canelo fought him, he was a terrible fighter. Remember all the Canelo haters saying Munguia was a terrible fighter, and all of a sudden he's a good fighter now, right? Uh, I just think sometimes these guys forget their agenda. Obviously, they work for Disney; they got to say what they got to say, but I thought that comment was very interesting. Now, going into who Munguia should fight next, obviously we stated the names already, but let's dive a little deeper into that. Last week I stumbled with that Berlanga versus Plant, and what was the other one? Berlanga versus Munguia. Let's play that game this week, Chris. Munguia Plant, who would you favor?
Munguia Plant. Obviously we talked about the boxing style that gives Munguia problems early on, but he's able to kind of weather, that storm in the middle to late rounds. Who has more experience, man? This is tough. This one's good. This one's like a 47, 52, 50-50 kind of fight. And I want to say Caleb Plant. I want to give Caleb Plant the edge just because I feel like he's got a little bit more dog in him, but it's not going to be an easy fight. So I would give the edge to Caleb Plant, but I'm not confident, as you can see. Well, what do you think, Gio?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting fight stylistically. I feel like Plant, sorry, uh, struggles a little bit with guys with power. You saw what McCumbee was able to do, dropped him a couple times. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, I think on paper he only went down once, but man, he was getting bounced around that ring with punches to the shoulder, punches to the body. And obviously, we know Munguia has a ton of power, as we said, 35 KOs and 44 wins, especially at 68. I feel like he's looking very powerful.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Munguia struggles against guys who can move. That's no secret. So I think that's such an interesting fight. I can see either way. I can see Plant outboxing him. I can see Munguia getting to him. I would probably favor Jaime Munguia at the moment. Just the youth, the power. I didn't like how Caleb Plant looked in his last fight. Uh, but I did like his heart. I did like the fact that he got a stoppage. He's not known to be a power puncher. So, yeah, I think it's a very, very, very interesting fight. But I would slightly favor, I would say, Jaime Munguia. Now, Jaime Munguia against Berlanga. I mean, both guys got size. Both guys got power. Both guys got a chin. I think, I don't know. I don't know, man. I like what I saw from Berlanga. I think he got better as the fight progressed against Canelo, even though he didn't, to me, he didn't win a round, but I thought he was going to get washed. I would still probably favor Munguia over Berlanga. And honestly, I don't know if I would favor too many guys over Berlanga at 168.
Yeah, for me, that one, I think it goes down a little fundamentals, which Munguia has a slightly more than Berlanga. But you saw that Berlanga. He got gritty. He's a warrior. Like you said, even though he lost every single round against Canelo, he just wouldn't go away. And he showed that he's got a good chin. You know, he got dropped, he got hit flush, but he got up and he kept coming in. Yeah, he does have power. Like you mentioned earlier, Munguia doesn't have the soundest of defenses. So if something lands, we saw that he could be dropped. So that one makes for a very intriguing fight. You got me double thinking with the Caleb plan because Caleb is 32. Like you said, he is a boxer type, but he does have trouble with power punchers. When I think of these kinds of fights, I'm like, who's taking the most punishment right now? Because Canelo withheld that punch in that 11th round. Caleb Plant is the guy that's been more weathered at 32 to Munguia's 27. You know, his last fight being, you know, with David Benavidez and Cumby. Canelo, he's more weathered, so he would have to summon some will at the end. But yeah, that one's very close, Gio. And as for Berlanga, man, that's bombs away. So yeah, those are three very intriguing fights. Those are those three guys that you can interchange and make, you know, heck of a fights. So those managers, those promoters are out there, man. Make your money right now. Work together and capitalize on this moment.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for Munguia. As I said, I'm interested to see what um platform he will fight on next. Obviously, he has options. I think this was good for him that he fought on Top Rank slash ESPN. Uh, we've talked so much in the past about, you know, crossing the street to fight this guy or that guy. Seems like that's hasn't been an issue lately, especially with Turkey now being in the mix. You know, as I said, Chris, I gotta make a boxing face for Turkey. You know, we talk about Canelo basically every week. I think we talk about Turkey more now, man, ever since he's came into the picture. You know, and of course we're gonna be talking about him later because they had that huge card in London on Saturday. But yeah, we'll see what happens next with Munguia. And yeah, I'm liking this version of him. I thought he fought a very tough, a very good fighter in Bazinyan. I'd like to see Bazinyan again. You know, he showed that he has some power as well. Munguia respected him. He had that boxing ability. That jab was in Munguia's face all fight long. But Munguia and his corner did well to stay calm and capitalize when they had Bazinyan hurt.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I would sign up for those three. Again, yeah, he's like the part of the guys, but you know, Caleb Plant, Berlanga, they'll talk their smack and they'll make it entertaining.
I think they made a great call also moving to 168. Obviously, he's a bigger guy. He's growing. I think he's now reaching his physical prime. You know, early in his career, he was a little thinner. You know, he's never been a guy that's looked very ripped. You know, I think now he's getting a little more muscle. He's looking stronger, as I said. His stamina's there. So I think it was a great call, especially considering there's nothing going on at 160 right now. Those guys are not fighting each other. As we said last week, Erislandi Lara has a belt at 160, Chris. 42-year-old Erislandi has a belt at 160. I think Munguia could have collected a lot of those, but hey, the bigger money fights are at 68. And also, you invite Johnny Beck, who's a very tough opponent. Southpaw has a ton of power, so I think it was a right call to go up to 68.